the subject matter is of this webinar is auditing the hardware asset repository and how to guarantee that the data in your hardware asset repository is accurate. The first place that we start when working with organizations to maintain hardware asset data is to first define the hardware asset management goals, because that's going to become the blueprint for the type of data that we need to manage for our hardware assets. There are many goals for hardware asset management. Most of you probably realize or have multiple goals from this list. But we'd like to understand first, what the true business goals of the hardware asset database is from a, financial perspective. Aligning hardware asset inventory to operational databases is often a core requirement. And the fact that a financial audit may have been performed that showed that the asset data in the asset repository was inaccurate, and aligning that financial and operational data and satisfying an audit finding could be the business goal. Whereas there's other goals such as managing stock and avoiding over purchasing, optimizing maintenance contracts, or potentially managing data centers and doing capacity or power management. The reason to first start with identifying the hardware asset management goals is because that's going to help us determine what data needs to be tracked for your hardware assets. For example, location data. Understanding the physical location of an asset is one of the core goals of an asset tracking solution. How accurate does that location data need to be? If you're satisfying a financial audit or an internal audit finding, or if your business goals are insurance or tax payment reduction, then understanding the building or even the county where the asset is located is sufficient. But if you're drilling down into data center management and capacity planning, you need to know the specific rack and even the U position of the asset. So first, by first identifying your business goals or your hardware asset management goals, that will help you determine how specific the hardware asset data needs to be. The reason that this is important is because the less specific the data needs to be, the easier it is to be accurate. It's very easy to track assets moving in and out of a building, but to track down to a U position or a rack location or an individual cube location is harder. Assets move around and they aren't tracked, and if you're required to track data to that level of granularity, that's more work for your asset tracking team. So one of your first goals in guaranteeing accurate data in your hardware repository is to identify the goals so that you're not trying to track too much information. Location granularity is one core example of that. Regardless of what the business goals are, the value of your asset management solution is all built upon having accurate data. The only reason we track and manage hardware information is to stuff it in a database and produce reports that help us make effective business decisions. And the bottom line is that when you run those reports, whether it's for planning your budgeting for next year, identifying capacity in a data center, if it is planning refreshes, or trying to optimize maintenance contracts, these are all reports that you're running from your asset data. And if that data is inaccurate, you can't really make those effective decisions. So how do you know that your asset data is accurate? You have to do regular audits of that data. The bottom line is that people, processes, and technology are imperfect. Things move around, and even with the most advanced RFID-based asset tracking systems, things still slip through the cracks. And without a regular audit process, your asset data will degrade over time. How quickly, it depends on how poorly your asset tracking process is. So there's varying degrees of inaccuracy in your database. But bottom line is, if you are audited or if you're generating reports or maintaining an asset repository, how do you know that the data is accurate? And that's the purpose of this webinar today. So fact number one is that the only thing constant is change. Assets move. Obviously, there's the asset lifecycle. Assets are received, deployed, stored, retired, disposed on a daily basis. And the trick is to maintain real-time current data in your asset database as those activities occur. And like I said, people and processes are imperfect, and since all this change activity occurs and database quality degrades, that poor data leads to a lack of trust in your IT asset management solution. Once that starts to happen, then it becomes really difficult for asset management to gain credibility. Your organizations often start to splinter, and different groups will start to build their own asset databases or just completely bail off of the main primary asset management solution, whether it's HP Asset Manager, ServiceNow, CA Asset Portfolio Management, whatever the core master source of truth for your asset records, which we all know we should have. There should be one master asset repository for the entire enterprise so that you get that visibility across the enterprise. But as soon as different teams start to lose trust in that solution, they bail and they start building their own systems, and the whole asset management program starts to break down. So we want to drive data quality so that when audited, your audit results come back with a high degree of accuracy. That builds credibility in the database and builds credibility in the asset management program. So the ultimate goal is to get and maintain complete, current, and accurate data in whatever back-end asset repository, whether it's your spreadsheet, whether it's ServiceNow, whether it's HP Asset Manager, CA, your help desk system, your service desk, your IT Asset Manager, BMC Remedy. All of these systems have the ability to store asset data. We want to make sure that anytime that system is queried, the data is accurate and trusted. So the way you do that is twofold. The first is to automate the asset lifecycle, automate updating your asset repository as assets move through the asset lifecycle. So we define an asset lifecycle here on screen of order, receive, store, deploy, move, retire, dispose. And if step one should be to provide tools and processes to people to make it easy to update the repository as these activities occur. Every time you receive an asset, you get it scanned in. Every time you deploy an asset, you update its location and user. Anytime you retire or dispose an asset, you change its status and get it pulled off the books. And there are tools. Obviously, AMI provides tools that do these. You can build your own tools, or you can. But the main point is that you can develop a process that your users follow to make changes to the repository as lifecycle processes occur. And that's goal number one. You have to do that in order to keep that real-time data flowing. But like we said, even with the best, most automated solution, if you stick RFID readers through the entire environment or invest in active RFID technology that broadcasts out to active readers spread throughout the environment and invest all that capital to set up that real-time solution, even with that advanced technology, things will slip through the cracks and assets will pass through portals without being read. Or more realistically, for most of us who are still implementing mobile apps and barcode-based asset tracking processes, people are going to receive equipment and not scan it in. They're going to steal stuff off the dock and deploy it to users without tracking them. Managers are going to take assets from departing employees and give them to another employee without telling asset management. These things are going to occur, and the database is going to degrade over time. So after you've automated as much as possible the asset lifecycle, you need to back it up with a regular cycle location audit process. And that's going to be the focus of today. We'll talk, we can obviously help with the automation of lifecycle tracking, but let's assume that's done. And now we want to establish a process by which we visit the environment, the complete environment on a rolling schedule and audit each individual location. And that's going to help us identify and correct errors in the database. So the goals of a particular audit is to first get good data. If there is bad or inconsistencies in the database, we want to fix those. So first, we're going to fix incorrect locations and user assignments. We're going to identify any assets that are in the repository but are missing. We call those ghost assets that are in your operational repository, but you don't physically have them anymore, or at least you don't know where they are. We need to identify those so we can go track them down. We need to capture any new assets. We call those rogue assets that have gotten out into the environment without ever being properly registered in the database. And then we also, after we get our good data, we want to determine where our asset tracking processes are falling down. And what I mean is that we want to track some statistics about the location accuracy, or the accuracy of asset data on a location by location basis, so that we can understand which areas are performing well, which locations are performing poorly, so that you can focus your attention on those areas and improve that database accuracy over time. So 2 goals. First, again, fix any problems in the database, and I'll show you how we do that. But then we also want to be tracking statistics about your accuracy data over time by location, so that you can identify where you need to focus your attention and provide additional training, etc. So to start, to plan our audit, the way we plan our audit is to first define the audit data requirements. Like I mentioned in the beginning, understanding how specific those location data need to be. Do we need to audit the user assignment, or are we sufficient by just verifying the physical location and status of the asset? First, let's understand what data fields in the database need to be audited, and those should be the ones that are critical for the reports that your asset management solution is requiring. The next is to divide the environment into manageable chunks. And what we recommend is that every asset is audited every 18 months. That can vary. We have government organizations that are required to do physical audits, once every 12 months. Other organizations may push it out to 24 months. But the point is, we want to divide our environment and break the environment into pieces, and then audit each individual piece on a rolling schedule, so that every location is visited and audited within that audit time period. So if we take the simple example of, we have an 18-month audit schedule, that's our requirement. We need to physically verify every location within 18 months. And in this perfect world, if we had 18 campus locations, we would divide the environment into those 18 campuses, and we would perform an audit of each campus every month. By doing so, then we would start over at the end of the 18 months, and we would roll through that environment once every month. Every audit location would be touched within our defined audit period. You're going to have to determine that for yourself. Obviously, if your requirements are to audit every year and you have 96 locations, one of your first tasks is to kind of divide the environment up into manageable pieces, so that you can assign resources to them and you can manage that audit, that rolling audit schedule. Once we've divided the environment, then it's time to begin an audit on an individual chunk. So if we're going to, if we've broken our environment into 18 pieces, we're starting with piece number 1, and we're going to perform the audit in, August of 2015. So when we now begin the audit, we are going to create work order tasks. We want to use our ITSM system to create work orders that we can, to first create a work order that manages the entire audit for that particular chunk. So if it's your, Dallas audit, we're going to create a master work order called the Dallas Audit, August 2015. And then we're going to subdivide that environment into individual sub-pieces that can be audited by an individual person. So that's also a subjective decision that you'll have to make. If you decided, we want to audit Dallas in August 2015, Dallas has 12 different locations, 12 different buildings. It's reasonable to have one user do an audit of each building. Then we want to create 12 tasks, assign them to 12 different users, so that you can then distribute that workload out to a number of data collectors, and have all of those tasks all roll up underneath the same Dallas task, the Dallas audit work order. That's going to help us first just validate to ensure that every location within this subsection is audited. You'll be able to monitor progress of the audit data collection, so you can track down people who aren't capturing their audit data quickly, and be able to produce dashboards and status reports. So once you've created your work orders, you've assigned your tasks, the next stage is to assign users out to go collect the audit data. And that means sending users to the location, providing them the tools to capture asset information on site and report that back to headquarters or report that back to asset management. And that's deploying that data capture technology so that they've got the tools to visit the location, scan the technology. The asset manager then needs to also monitor the data collection progress so that as asset data comes in from the field during the course of the audit, the asset manager is able to detect and reconcile any data exceptions. Exceptions are going to occur, as we said, you're going to detect new assets that were discovered and not ever registered in the database to begin with. You're going to identify missing assets that were supposed to be somewhere and weren't found. An asset manager needs to be able to monitor the incoming data, and the data that requires additional research needs to be flagged, and the asset manager needs to be able to spawn tasks to send somebody to go visit those locations and get those ghost assets found, or get additional information added to any new assets that need to be inventoried, like purchasing information or acquisition date or warranty information before the data can be applied. And then once that data is then applied to the repository, all the corrections are made, the new assets are added, the ghost assets are tagged, then the last stage is to produce audit results reports that span all data across that entire Dallas area audit for August 2015. And some of those audit result reports are going to show you your accuracy across the entire Dallas audit, that help us identify missing assets and help us provide follow-up tasks so that we can go do research and find and collect any asset information that was missing during the audit. It's also going to help us produce the statistics reports that we need to monitor the performance of that asset management team over time. So as we said, defining the data requirements is determining things like location granularity, defining the status definitions for assets that are discovered during that audit. If you're managing auditing stock rooms, then when you're collecting data, you're either going to set them to an in-stock status, set them to in-use if they're deployed out in the environment. We want to define what you're going to tag assets that are found to be missing, and then as well as any rogue and unknown assets. Define those data requirements up front so that you can configure your data collection technology to automatically assign the correct status based on the state of those assets. Determine whether you need to track user assignment or not. The more data you need to collect during the audit, the slower the data audit goes. And we have plenty of organizations that are simply trying to validate that they physically own the asset. They use their discovery system to track the last login information for user assignment. If that's sufficient, then remove user from the audit requirement. That's going to make it easier for your data collectors to capture data. Similarly, cost center, organizational unit, you can use your purchasing records or your IMAC transactions to assign the assets to the appropriate cost center. But we have plenty of organizations where assets move between cost centers without being reported, and they make cost center as part of their audit to ensure that the assets are being assigned to the correct organization. You'll have to determine this for your own business, but the less data you can collect for that audit, the simpler it's going to be. The very most basic is your location, status, and verify detecting any new or missing assets. So we mentioned then the next step is to define the environment. You're going to want to define your service areas for reporting purposes. To simplify, if we have one service area per state, you've got 50 service areas in your enterprise. Depending on how you organize the location or service areas of your business, divide your environment into those pieces, group those pieces by physical location, and then define segments within those locations that are auditable by one person. This dividing the environment is subjective. If you have a building location with only a few hundred assets in it spread across, you could have one person audit that entire building. If you're auditing a downtown skyscraper in Manhattan, 60 floors, you may need to then segment that building into pieces. The point is we want to define the segments into pieces that can be audited by an individual person within a reasonable time frame. If your time requirements are to complete the audit in a month, then your data collection process needs to be able to complete within a week or so that you can then reconcile exceptions, potentially send people out to revisit that location to track down missing assets, and then produce your audit reports. And if your segments are done once every month, you need to complete that first audit segment in the first month. So you'll learn that over time, kind of how much data can be collected by an individual person, but you want to define those segments down to a piece auditable by one person so that you can assign that person a task, track the progress of those tasks, and then ensure that the entire location is audited and complete. And then we recommend touching all locations in 12 to 18 months. You could stretch that to 24. It depends on your requirements there. So the next stage of after you define the environments, this is where you're going to create and assign your audit tasks. You want to create that one master work order task that governs the entire audit and have one subtask per audit segment so that you can assign an individual task to that user. We sometimes use a rule of thumb to divide larger locations into groups of 1,000 assets. Again, it depends on the density of your environment. If you're auditing a data center and you're using RFID technology, you can increase that because it's relatively easy for a single person to capture data center assets with RFID. They can capture way more than 1,000. But as a rule of thumb, we use that 1,000 asset as a starting estimate in terms of how much to divide larger locations. So now, performing the actual audit, there are three key functions. There's the data capture, sending somebody to the environment to collect the data, and then report that back to asset management. And then there's the data reconciliation piece, where identifying new or missing or improperly located assets. That reconciliation piece is a process performed by the asset manager to decorate asset information that was discovered in the environment that isn't able to just be added to the repository. Any assets that were discovered in unknown locations or any new assets that require purchasing information, we can't just stream those into the database without them being checked. There are cases where we have auditors go to an environment and they do an audit, and the IBM is performing a POC, or they've got a team of contractors that have come in and they're stationed at a building for a couple of months, and the auditor goes through and discovers 35 new workstations during the audit, and they inventory them like they're supposed to, report them up, but turns out when those records are trapped, held for reconciliation, upon research, they discover that those aren't company-owned assets and they can discard those. So we need a reconciliation process to review records that don't align properly with the back-end repository so that an asset manager can reconcile those prior to then integrating those records into the database. So there's three primary roles. There's the data collector. That's your guy that you send out to the field to scan and capture asset information using their mobile devices. There's the asset manager, who monitors the incoming data and reconciles. The asset manager coordinates the audit, assigns the audit tasks to data collectors, and then reconciles any records that come in that don't align properly with the repository, such as adding purchase information and determining whether assets should be added to the repository or not. You want to separate these two functions because the data collectors in the field, they aren't the ones that have the capability to determine if this is a company-owned asset or not. The asset manager needs to have that command and control over the reconciliation process. And then the last user role is your report consumer. These are the people that are querying the asset repository to run, whatever kind of asset reports they want. But these are also people that are measuring or reporting on the accuracy of the data at given locations and looking at the trend reporting to determine the accuracy by location over time. And this helps identify locations that are falling down, that aren't following processes correctly, so that you can focus more attention on those areas and get the asset data accuracy improved. When choosing your data collection technology, you want to make it easy on your data collectors to capture your asset information. So you obviously want to choose a flexible cross-platform solution. Users these days have their own smartphones, iOS, Android, BlackBerry 10s, Windows phones, and you want a data collection technology that supports all of them, so you're not having to purchase additional hardware, and you can use the data capture tools that people have in their pockets already. They absolutely must support barcode or RFID scanning. Smartphones these days can scan barcodes with their camera, so you don't need to invest in scanning technology. If you have really small asset tag barcodes or you're using manufacturer serial number barcodes, you may want to invest in an external Bluetooth barcode scanner. Cameras on phones are not good, especially in low light environments, of grabbing very small barcodes. And if it takes a minute to read the barcode value with a camera, the time to collect your audit data is going to be too high. RFID works great for location auditing. Just be advised that your RFID tags are going to cost $1 a piece. You can, give or take, depending on your volume, you can get those reduced. We've seen 80-cent tags. There are 5-cent RFID tags out there, but those don't work for realistic IT asset tracking. So, you'll have to invest in the RFID technology, but that will make the audit data collection process far easier because you eliminate line of sight. Regardless, you want to use data collection technology that supports both barcode and RFID, so that if you use that technology, you're able to collect data using it. The data collection tool you select should provide feedback to the data collector of missing assets. We call this device-side audit reporting. When somebody goes and visits a location and they're collecting data, that application that they're using should show them the audit results on their device. So, this location, we're expecting 150 assets. As they go through and do the audit collection, they should be able to see on the device that we've got 42 assets to go that were expected but not found. We found 62 assets as we were supposed to. We discovered 32 that were moved, known to be in the repository, but were supposed to be in a different location. And we captured 12 new assets. This is going to provide the data collector a chance to go talk to the asset manager at the building or the office manager and say, look, we're reporting 32 assets here. Here's the list. We can't find them. And they can say, oh, well, go check downstairs in this cage that's kind of hidden in the back room. We've tucked a bunch of stuff down there. Or, go talk to Steve. He just disposed of a ton of assets at the end of the day and may not have reported it. That device-side audit reporting will give the data collector feedback so they can do additional searching and make sure that they did, in fact, visit every location within their audit segment. The solution should be configurable, obviously, so that if you determine your location requirements or whether you need to audit user information or cost center information, you want to be able to easily configure your data collection forms. And then it needs to provide a validation process so that, as new assets are detected or assets are determined to be missing, that there's a process for tagging those records for follow-up. All of this stuff can be built. It can be bought. AMI provides this solution out of the box, so I'm incentivized to recommend ours, of course. However, what we're talking about here is more of a process. And whether you're going to build or buy, these are the components of your data collection technology you need to consider. And then I left off, of course, the last is, after you've collected your audit data, reconciled exceptions, you need to then integrate the changes with your backend ITAM or CMDB repository. So your collection and reconciliation technology needs to account for all of these capabilities. when collecting the audit data, like we said, we want to have a solution that provides feedback to the user so that when they visit the San Diego location, the application downloads and shows them assets expected at that location. So that as they go through and scan their inventory, the solution can detect, assets that are expected and found by the audit, assets that were found but supposed to be in a different location. So this is an unreported location move. And then any new assets that were discovered that weren't in the system that need to be determined. Are they a company-owned asset or not? You want your mobile technology to provide that feedback to the user so they can track down missing assets. And then, like we said, the application needs to, or the process for managing the audit data needs to reconcile collected data against your foundational data tables. And what we mean by that is as assets are discovered in the environment, an audit collector can inventory those assets. And during that inventory of that new asset, they may create a new model that wasn't found in the master ServiceNow model list or the master HP Asset Manager model list. That data collector, if he creates a new model or creates a new sublocation that's not found, those records need to be reconciled and compared against those master data tables, whether regardless, whatever your master database is. And that reconciliation engine needs to trap records that don't properly align. That's where the asset manager can come in and approve the new model or change it to an existing model, approve the new location or change it to an existing location, correct those errors, and then push those through to the repository. The solution should seamlessly integrate with the repository, so the asset manager doesn't have to review and process every record. The reconciliation engine needs to be smart enough so that it can detect records that need attention, isolate and quarantine those, so the asset manager can review those and then push them through to your back-end repository. Using a system of, we've talked about collecting the audit data, reconciling that data against the repository, providing flexible mobile tools to your data collectors, providing that device-side feedback so that the data collector at a location knows I need to continue my audit. I haven't completed my visiting every location there. That's going to eliminate having to send somebody back out to a location to do additional work. And then we talked about data that's being flowing in from the field audit needs to be validated, and then records that need to be reconciled need to be trapped, and tools need to be provided to asset managers to clean and then integrate those changes to the repository. And by doing that, your data is going to be up to date at completing this inventory for August 2015 in the Dallas location. The data for that location is going to be accurate. An additional thing we want to do then is to, by assigning the audit process using your ITSM system, we can track and we can produce dashboards that show the status of those audits with real-time dashboards. This is something that AMI does for customers. By dividing your environment and to breaking your asset environments into sublocations and assigning tasks, you can produce statistics results that show you the progress of those audits over time. And if your audit process, like we said, has to complete every month and you're getting around the end of the month, you can see Los Angeles is 2% complete based on how many assets at the Los Angeles location have been touched. You can go whip these people into shape and make sure that people are producing reports over time. By also using a solution that logs all statistics, including any assets that are missing that were expected at a given location but determined to be missing, those records need to be updated in the repository with an audit status of missing or unknown, so that after a particular location is audited and the changes are applied to the repository, the asset manager needs to be able to run a report from their ServiceNow system or HP system. Show me all assets for this audit date that were tagged as missing. That produces a report where you can then spawn work orders to users to go track down what happened to those assets. Those assets should have a last known location in their ServiceNow system, the last known user assignment. If you've been properly automating lifecycle tracking, you'll be able to find the record when that asset was assigned to a user so that you can contact that person's manager, try to track those assets down. If they are found, then you send somebody out to go scan them or have that user report the asset location and status, get that record updated in the repository so it gets pulled off of that missing asset list. So we went out to the location, we did the audit, we visited every location, we captured the data, we reconciled any exceptions and applied those to the repository. Following that, since our solution tagged missing assets with an appropriate status, we can then run a report to determine, here's our 32 missing assets from the Dallas location from our September audit. Let me create work orders in our ITSM system to make sure that the research is done to track those down. At the end, hopefully you found most of those missing assets, you get them updated, but following that, you're still going to find, that there's a handful of assets that are truly missing. Perhaps they were stolen. That is a report that you can then produce up to the CIO and the CFO to, evaluate the risk of data breaches from the environment, and then also to contact financials and have them do full depreciation and make sure they're no longer paying property taxes and insurance on those assets. So in addition to, just correcting data in the database and tagging assets that are missing so that you can follow up and do something about that, you want to make sure that the audit system or the audit solution that you have logs statistics about those audits. So anytime a new asset is detected or an asset is detected in the wrong location or any asset is tagged as missing, you want to log that information in a database by audit task or audit work order and by service area or by location so that you can produce statistics by location for that given audit. So in this example here, we've got Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles locations, and we've captured that for Seattle, out of the 1,000 assets at the Seattle location, according to the database at the beginning of the audit, 800 of them were properly expected and found. We discovered 50 assets that we know about, but were supposed to be in the San Francisco location, somehow got moved. We discovered 20 new assets that were never reported. Those are our rogue assets. And then we determined there were 62 assets that have gone missing. By recording those statistics by location, we can generate some accuracy numbers by evaluating, out of the total, what is the total accuracy of that location at a given time. So this is your August 2015 audit dashboard showing you the statistics by location. Now, we want to store that information in historical database tables so that we can show trend reports over time. When we did the August 2015 audit, we found that Seattle was at 50%, 60% accuracy. San Francisco was way down at 25. Los Angeles was way down at so forth. So that this looks bad to start with, but we've identified here that San Francisco and Los Angeles are the areas where we need to focus our attention. They have the worst accuracy over time. This becomes a baseline that you can send up to management. In addition to giving you the intelligence as the asset manager, who needs additional training? Who needs punitive action? Do we need to fire people? Do they have technology problems? Do they not have access to the systems? Do they have some turnover there and they need additional training? This gives you the intelligence to know where you need to focus your attention. And when you do focus your attention on these locations, and then you perform additional audits over the years, by recording these statistics, you can then produce trend reporting. And this is what you want to show, that over a time segment, we started off poorly, but as you show to management, we're doing these regular audits over time, and by location, we can see the improvement in the accuracy over time. And once that accuracy level starts to report at a sufficient high 90% accuracy rate, audit after audit, now you can relax your audit schedule and maybe stretch that out to 24 months. It's going to produce trust in the asset management program. Any consumers of your asset data are gonna know that the data that they're receiving is accurate. It's going to make asset managers look good. It's going to create competition between your service areas. If you publish this trend information, San Francisco is going to be like, oh man, we look pretty bad, and Seattle's kicking our butt. Let's work harder here because we're looking bad. Capturing this type of accuracy metrics is the second level of audit benefit that you get. Again, the first goal of the audit was to just make sure, let's just get good data. You know, we go do the audit, let's make sure that we correct any errors in the database. Now that data may start to degrade over time if our asset lifecycle processes are not performing well. But as we do the audit, let's at least correct the errors so that we know, at least as of August 2015, our data is in the high 90% accuracy rate. But then let's also be more mature than that and track our accuracy statistics over time by location so that we can know where to focus our energies, and we can demonstrate to the business that the effort that we put into improving asset tracking is paying off. And that when they're auditing our database or they're running reports from it, they can trust it because they understand the controls that we use to guarantee that that data is accurate over time. This is where we want to get to, we want to help our customers get to, is to where when they do an audit, they're up in that high 90% range. And the solutions that we provide as AMI, we build solutions that help companies do all of this stuff, automate the data capture, automate the reconciliation, and track the audit statistics over time to be able to produce these types of dashboards. Again, this is all process. You can do this yourself. You can build this yourself. You can implement third-party solutions that help automate this. This is more of a process I want to teach and leave so that you can start to plan your attack on how to guarantee accurate data in your asset database. And then, of course, if you want to learn from AMI, like how do we help you, what kind of solutions are available, you can obviously contact us, and we're happy to show you our technology that helps support what you're going for. At the end of the day, complete, current, and accurate asset data is what drives the value of IT asset management. There's no point in doing ITAM or managing CMDB systems if the data isn't accurate. That is the ultimate goal. And AMI helps you, as a company, we help companies manage their asset inventory. And we can help, of course, design these solutions and provide the data capture reconciliation technology that makes this all possible as an out-of-the-box solution. And just kind of last piece, we are partners with ServiceNow, HP, CA. We work quite a bit with customers that are running those solutions as their asset management platforms. We also support other companies with other backends like BMC Remedy. So it doesn't particularly matter what your backend database is. The process for dividing your audit, capturing data, reconciling changes, and tracking statistics is common across all backend platforms. So with that, if you want to learn more about AMI, come to amitracks.com. We're happy to take these conversations offline and answer any questions. But I do want to open it up for questions now. I want to check our check our questions list now, and so we got a comment from one user here that experience has shown that developing the reconciliation process can be problematic, and trying to report metrics need to be carefully reviewed. That is true. The reconciliation process is not simple. We at AMI address that by building what we call the management console, and the asset track application that we built provides an asset manager the ability, this person back here, the asset manager, this person is monitoring an out-of-the-box tool that we created within Asset Track called the Management Console. And the purpose of that tool is to enable the asset manager to define business rules that cause records to be trapped and held for reconciliation. So you need a solution that allows an organization to define what those rules are, and that's new assets assets that have changed location or status, assets that have gone missing. These are all field level properties that can be configured within the tool that say, if the asset collected audit data meets these criteria, held them up for reconciliation. And we don't purport that there's any solution that can just automatically correct errors. We need to rely on asset managers to do that human analysis and determine, are these company-owned assets or not, to do the research to track down the purchase data so they can get those new assets added and associated with the correct purchase contracts where possible, to collect warranty information, to validate with manufacturers that the models that were created as new assets were discovered are real valid models and they're not just some garbage created by the data collector. The reconciliation process is difficult. Technology can help. Technology that's configurable by an asset manager to determine the criteria by which a record gets trapped provides flexibility so that you can build that reconciliation system more easily. Got another question. So what's the best practice for reconciling missing assets from one site which may have been moved to another site? Well, when you by doing that regular rolling audit, you're going to discover that asset in the new site. An example of this, I'm going to pop over here and just kind of give just a quick and dirty demo to kind of show a picture of what we're talking about for an audit using our technology. Again, you can do this with others, but by using a solution, when somebody goes and visits a location and they capture an audit location, they choose the audit by where they're gonna scan, and they use a solution that downloads the assets that are expected at that location, so that as they go through the environment and they scan assets, the system's going to determine assets that are found and were expected and found are going to show up and be displayed to the user with this green color. Assets that were known in the system but expected at a different location are identified, and they will be moved to this location, but the device reports that they're unknown or that they're not expected at this location, versus an asset that is brand new, needs to be added to the database and inventory. So when we complete this audit, you'll see that we've got 48 assets that are expected but still haven't been scanned by this particular audit data collector for this particular segment in this location. These assets are all going to get tagged in the location or held in the reconciliation system. They're going to be updated with the missing status. When we submit and send that up, those records are going to be tagged. But now when the next audit is performed and the user chooses the next location, and that asset is then discovered in that location, even though it's expected in the first location, but when that asset is scanned in the new location, it's going to show up as one of these guys, one of these unexpected. It was supposed to be in the first location. It's discovered in the second. That asset's going to be updated to its new location, and its status is going to be changed from missing back to in use or in stock. So using an intelligent solution that's using your asset tags or serial numbers as keys to go locate those assets, and by organizing your location audit into a rolling schedule, any assets that are determined to be missing in location number one and are searched and hunted down, that can't be just found based on an IMAC transaction into the next location, they will be discovered in that location the next month when you go audit that location. So that's how we're going to catch records that were determined to be missing and need to be caught or will be caught. I got a question about just something about our software here. Can the handheld devices generate unique asset tag numbers with your software? That's a good question, and it can, but we don't recommend that. We recommend to our customers to just purchase pre-printed unique asset tag stickers. If you're talking about tagging the physical assets, the reason being is that like any kind of self-printing option is very poor quality. Customers ask us all the time, can your system just print barcodes? Well, that means you got to buy a printer, you got to buy stock, you've got to manage the printing and the distributed assignment of those tags, and you can have the software create a tag automatically, but the quality of that tag is poor. A barcode manufacturer can create a much more durable adhesive, a polyester laminate tag that's difficult to remove, tamper-resistant type tags that leave a tampered code on the asset if the tag is peeled off, and just the quality of those tags is just so far better, and the cost is so minimal that it's worth just buying pre-printed tags and having rolls of tags. So when you send a data collector out to do an audit, that person should have a roll of new tags with them in their pocket or in their bag. So as they discover these unknown assets that don't have a tag on them, they can slap a new tag and scan it, add that asset to the list, and then they can, capture their serial number by, scanning the barcode on the asset from the manufacturer and then capturing its model information. So that asset tag here that I just assigned, I just peeled off of a roll of pre-printed ones. So anyway, the software can generate tags and drive printers. We don't recommend it. Just get pre-printed tags. It just, everybody does it that way, kind of once we go through that sort of process with them there. So if we have any more questions, please, we just have a couple more minutes here. Please submit them through the question and answer control panel, and we'd be happy to answer those now. And then we are going to, as Clay said in the beginning, we're going to record this, or we have recorded this, and we are going to post this up online. We'll send you all a link so that you can share this presentation out with other in your organization. If you want more information or contact us directly, please visit amitracks.com, and you can get us on the horn. And again, I hope this was helpful. I think that by looking at asset tracking holistically and realizing that you need to automate your lifecycle processes end to end, but back it up with a regular cycle audit process, that's how you're going to get that database accuracy complete, current and accurate, and trusted. That's going to drive the value in your asset management program, and that's where you're going to be successful. We work with customers and we help them automate individual tasks like receiving or IMAC, and you can get value out of those. But the true value of asset management comes when you look at the asset database or the asset lifecycle holistically. And that location audit process is what we found our most successful customers lean on to get that data quality that they need. So without any further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And thank you very much for your attendance today.